guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and we are talking more about your health. And we are on a sugar detox currently with a group of people that I lead. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about sugar and refined foods and why it matters what we're eating. And kind of my little simplified way of explaining how it all kind of works inside of our body. I want you to know that my metaphors are not exactly perfect, but they kind of give us a way of conceptualizing what's going on inside of our bodies so that we have more of an understanding. Therefore, maybe we are more willing to do what it's going to take in order to help improve our health. So one of the metaphors that I've talked about before, I've actually made videos about it, but I have had people tell me that this is kind of an easy way for them to understand things. So I usually try to use this with my patients as well as the group of people that I coach. So when we eat, our pancreas is going to secrete something called insulin into our body, and that insulin is going to help drive that food that we've eaten into our cells to try to be used for energy. So that's kind of the general kind of basic way of looking at it. The way that I like to explain it that makes it a little more fun is that when we eat, think about those food particles as cars going out on a highway. The highway is your bloodstream, and those food particles are the cars. Now, if you put in things like healthy proteins, you put in healthy fats, not the kind of junky fats that have been overprocessed in a factory, like vegetable oil based things or corn oil and things like that. But when you put in healthy proteins, healthy fats, healthy vegetables, and then a certain amount of fruits too is fine. When you put those into your body, those little food particles break down. They go through your bloodstream and they make their way into your cells, which I like to think as your little garages at your house. Okay? And so those things break down nice and steady, and out they go onto your bloodstream, and they go into their garages where they belong, and everything is great. Problem is, when we start eating a bunch of food that is high in sugar or high in processing, which processed food most people know, if it did not come from God's hand in its natural state, then it is processed. So flour, sugar, refined oils, and things like that are going to be the primary ones. So anything that has a lot of flour, that's going to be bread and your crackers and your cookies and your cakes and your cereal and things like that. All of those kinds of things are part of our sugar and refined products. So also different types of oil like vegetable oils and canola oil and corn oil and things like that. These foods, as they are introduced into our body, it's like dumping a bunch of cars into our body all at once. It's all going in onto that highway at the same time. And as it's going in, because it doesn't have fiber and it's junky food, it's like putting junky gas in your car where your car is just not going to perform very well. You put that junky stuff in your body and you put a bunch of it in there, guess what? You have traffic jams, you have traffic all the time on the highways. And when you do that and put so much into your bloodstream all at once, those highways, and you have so many cars, they can't find their way to their cells. They don't make their way there. There's a lot of excess traffic on the highways. What's the problem with excess traffic? Well, nobody likes traffic because you can't get home. Nobody likes to be slowed down, right? And part of the problem is you have an increased prevalence of accidents because everybody's trying to get someplace fast and there's too many cars. And same thing happens in our body. When you have all that junk out on your highways in your bloodstream, you are going to have a lot of accidents. So guess what ends up happening with your things like excess food, excess carbs, excess, and I'm talking about processed, all the sugars and things like that. In a world where we live where diabetes is very prevalent, what ends up happening is you get a lot of damage to your body. So most people are familiar with the fact that people that have had diabetes for a length of time will have things like amputations of their feet and things like that. And a lot of times people wonder why that's going on. Why does that happen when you have diabetes? Well, this is kind of a very basic way of looking at it. But when you have too many cars on the highway and they are getting into accidents, the same thing happens when you have all that junky food, excess sugar, excess just too much food all the time anyway. We're in a culture of snacking all the time, eating when you wake up, eating all through the day, eating before you go to bed. There's traffic on the highway all the time. And what's happening is we're damaging everything in the path. So you know that your bloodstream is feeding all the different parts of your body. It's feeding your eyes, it's feeding your heart, your kidneys, it's feeding going through your liver, it's feeding all your fingertips and your toes so that you can feel them, you feel sensation, you have blood flowing there, everything's not turned blue. If you have a lot of food out there on the highway all the time, those cars out on the highway, and they're causing damage, it's kind of like shards of glass. That stuff is causing damage. So anywhere that the blood flows and it's carrying all that extra junk, it's damaging things. So people start to damage the things that are farthest away first because your blood is trying to get there and it's being inhibited by all that extra traffic. So you're getting not as much good blood flow to your fingers and your toes. Your toes are the main one that we always see. Toes and feet are what go through amputations when people have diabetes because it's the farthest thing away. The blood is trying to get there. You have damaged the nerve endings. You've damaged the blood supply to that area, and it's because of the types of stuff that we've been eating. So not only though amputations, people hear about your kidneys, people end up with dialysis. Well, shards of glass going through your kidneys all the time is going to cause a lot of damage. It's like grating, it doesn't make sense. We want to shred up the filter and then expect it to continue to work. It doesn't work. So now we have to have an artificial filter, which is dialysis. Same thing with your eyes. Your eyes get damaged and people will start to have damaged sight from all that extra sugar and things, and their heart disease and everything else. So as a very simple way of trying to explain this, if you're putting a bunch of cars out on your highway all the time and they're going way too fast all the time, you are going to have a lot of damage. So what do we want to do? We want to have a steady, nice, controlled stream of traffic. And wouldn't it be nice that after 5 o'clock, whatever time you choose, until the next morning, there's not a bunch of traffic out on the highway? Maybe it would give the construction crews time to go and repair everything while there's not a bunch of traffic out there. So this is where intermittent fasting fits in. So when we eat healthy foods that just give us a nice steady flow of traffic just to get us where we need to go, goes into your cells, makes all those little food particles make their way into your garages, your cells, and everybody's happy. When that's happening, you're eating healthy protein, healthy fats, you're eating vegetables, healthy fruits, healthy carbs, and I can go into all that stuff towards the end of the video. But as you're putting that stuff in your body is having a nice steady stream of traffic. It's nothing out of control. Your body can handle it really well, and everybody gets where they need to go, all into their little cells, and everything's fine and dandy. And then when we introduce a bunch of sugar in the form of sodas and juices, or we eat a lot of sugary foods, or we're eating a lot of processed stuff, and we dump all that into our system repeatedly throughout the day, we are causing all that traffic and things can't get to the cells. You have a lot of, now you have more traffic on the highway than there are even garages to go into. And guess what? The consequence of a lot of traffic on the highway all the time, the garage doors stop working. They don't open anymore. And so the cars can't even get into the cells because there's a lock on those garage doors. So when our cells start to become resistant, now we have even more trouble because we've got a lot of cars out on the highway and they can't get in. One of the things that allows those garage doors to open back up is exercise. So when you get out and you walk or you go to the gym or you dance like I do, ballet, you start flipping open garage doors all over your body and all those little cars can go into their garages. So the food that you're eating gets used, it goes into the garages, everybody's happy. With intermittent fasting, when you stop eating and you give yourself time for that highway to get cleaned and to really go through a process of getting repaired, guess what? Everything is so much better. Everything's smoother inside your system. And this is really good too. So when you decide I'm going to have like a 16-hour fasting window, that means that maybe at 4 at night, 4 in the afternoon, you've eaten your last bite of food. And then, okay, help me here, 8 in the morning the next day, you can eat breakfast. That gives you a 16-hour window, right? Did I do the math right? So that gives your body time for all the repair to happen, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, here's another little way that I talk about the concept of what's going on inside of our body that, again, is very basic. So trying not to take into account that there's a lot going on in our body that I'm not putting into this little metaphor. But imagine that when you eat food, it has to go through your liver and it's processed through your liver. And so as it goes and it's stored in the liver, when we go to tap into our energy source, we are taking some from the liver, right? If there's a lot of excess so that it's over full in the liver, then it goes into the fat cells. Here's the problem. It's kind of like if you don't take your trash out to the curb every week and let the trash truck take it away, and you just kind of accumulate it after weeks and weeks, pretty soon your trash barrels get over full. And now you've got bags and stuff stored throughout maybe your garage or your side yard or wherever you keep the extra trash that doesn't fit in your trash bag. Same concept. Once your liver, your trash bag gets, or trash barrel, there we go, trash barrel gets full, now it's going out into your fat cells and it's getting stored there. But if we don't ever give ourselves the time to take the trash out, then we're never going to get rid of all of this. So what we have to do is first take our trash barrel out to the curb and let it get emptied. And then we take the stuff from the fat cells, we take the stuff that's been sitting in bags elsewhere and put it in that trash barrel and let it go out to the curb and take it away. How do we do that? Intermittent fasting is one of the best ways to do that, because what it does is it allows that trash truck to come by and take our trash. So I actually have a friend who was a trash man, and I loved it because I'm like, yes, I love trash people. They make me so happy. So I should say I have a friend. I have a friend who was a trash man. Anyway, so the whole point of all of this is that we want to be processing food in the best way possible so that we don't end up with the damage and that we feel good and we have energy and we're not carrying around excess weight. So when you get the concept that certain foods make a huge impact on whether you're storing them or you're using them, on whether you're just flooding your highways, your bloodstream with way too much traffic and it's just causing all this damage, when we realize that we have control over all of that, then we want to do it, right? Because you want to do what's going to help you and make you feel really good. So healthy proteins, I always tell people, now some people are more vegetarian, some people are more like paleo and keto. When you read, okay, I take a lot of my information from Dr. Jason Fung, so I highly recommend him for any kind of motivation you want on getting healthier and eating better and helping control diabetes and all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of what I have gathered from him is stuff that really makes sense because it's the research that I have gone through and a lot of the processing over the years of being in the medical field. But one of the things that he has done is he's looked at different cultures, and some cultures eat a lot of carbohydrates. Some and they're eating very little meat. Some are eating a lot of meat and very little carbohydrates. Some are eating a lot of fat and hardly any carbohydrates, whatever the case is. All of those cultures, now we're not talking about in our culture here, because we eat, the people that eat a lot of carbohydrates in our culture usually are eating a lot of processed carbohydrates. And if you're eating a lot of meat or a lot of fat, you might be eating junky ones. So I'm talking about cultures from years ago, our ancestors. They found that each of those actually had equal amount of controlled insulin levels in their body, that they were all very healthy. So it didn't matter if it was more carbohydrate or more of a, I'm trying to combine both at once, paleo or keto. I almost said pedo and paleo. Okay. Woo, going a little too fast. Too much traffic on my highway. Okay, so whether you're doing one of those, your health was, their health was actually good. So the question is then, what should we do? Well, what it boiled down to, it was unprocessed. And I love the way he says it. He calls it processed. I feel like I should change the way I say that because it just sounds so much more, I don't know, it's less processed. But bottom line is, when you are eating foods that are not processed and they're not high in sugar, they're not high in flour, and they are made the way that God made them, of course it makes sense that all of this would fall under God's beautiful design. Once again, that the way that he made food is the best thing for us. And so when you're eating protein, whether you like to go more protein through your vegetables, which a lot of vegetables have high protein, or more with beans and nuts and seeds, those are great. Or if you're choosing meats, you know, if you can afford it, doing more of the organic and grass-fed. If you can't afford it, then I just pray that as you eat the meat that you have, whatever you can afford, that God would bless it. But, and he does, he sanctifies things that we don't have the ability to necessarily afford or whatever. So you do the best you can with what you have. But whether it's meat, whether it's fish, I like to do variety. I try not to eat no meat or all meat. I do a lot of stuff like hummus. So I like the beans and that kind of thing. Nuts and seeds are really good. Keep your vegetable content high. Meats are great. Again, grass-fed or organic. Then we're looking at fats. So you try to stay away from the really refined bad fats. So that has evolved over time too. Margarine, no good. Butter, good. Ghee, good. You want coconut oil and avocado oil and olive oil and your nuts and seeds and things like that as your healthy fats. Avocado. Try to stay away from the vegetable oils and the processed oils that are taken from like cottonseed and corn and things where that's not really a place where we want to try to get oil out of, because it's not anything, it requires a lot of processing to get that out. And so we know that that's not good for you. Also, vegetables, pretty much fair game. I will make another vegetable video at some point. And then as far as carbohydrates, a lot of people struggle with this because we are a very carbohydrate centered culture for the most part, partly because our food pyramid from years and years that we've sort of kind of gotten away from, although unfortunately I still see old school way of thinking that people are still sort of stuck in this. But the bottom section of the food pyramid was always 6 to 12 servings of grains during the day. So it was like people were eating tons of bread and crackers and cookies and flour-based things. That's gone out the window because it's a very highly processed. So what we're looking for if we're going to eat carbohydrates is going to be things the way that God made them. So we're looking more at root vegetables and fruits. Those are the primary ones that I do. Some people are okay with things like rice and quinoa and those types of grains. I usually stay away from them. I don't do as well with them, but I don't have like a strict rule, yes or no. I make quinoa for my husband a lot, and I think it's great if you do well with it. A lot of my patients with high sugar do not do well with rice. So if it's not working for you, I say don't do it. But these are the kinds of things that we try to incorporate more in a way that our body knows how to break them down. Differences between fruit and a fruit juice. Fiber. Fiber slows down the traffic on your highway. Once you stripped out all the fiber, now you're just putting race cars down your system. And guess what? There's going to be damage. So these are all kind of the ways that I try to explain how really getting the concept of what food is doing inside of your body and how our bodies react. Hopefully it gives you a little something to think about so that the next time you try to decide, oh, do I really want to go for a walk? Well, wait a second. I'm going to be throwing open all my garage doors. I'm going to go open some garage doors. I want all those cars to go where they need to go. Or if you are really trying to decide, oh, should I drink that Coke? Or, oh, it just sounds so good. I don't want a whole bunch of traffic out on my highway causing damage and tearing everything apart in sight. So you go and you drink your sparkling LaCroix or whatever the case might be. So I hope that that gives you some food for thought. Perfect metaphor again. I hope that you are doing really well with the sugar detox, that you're getting some good health benefits. I think that our skin feels better, our bellies feel better, our minds feel better. And at the same time as getting rid of that sugar, thinking about all that processed food and trying to get out that stuff too. So, okay, I hope that that gives you something to work with, and then I will see you again soon. I would love to hear if you want to comment any topics that are of interest to you, and I will make some videos on that too. Okay, thanks so much for being with me, and I hope that you're living your life on fire.